Today's subject is on the experience of hope and the role hope plays in our lives. Hope is something that is a powerful force, and it can be found in each one of us, like a flickering flame just waiting to be ignited. In the Harry Potter books, Professor Dumbledore reminds us that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if only one remembers to turn on the light. It's only when we remember that with hope, we find that a light that can be that beacon that guides us through the darkest of our times. In our journey of life, we often encounter pain, suffering, and uncertainty. Yet it is hope that provides us with the strength to persevere and seek meaning, even in the most challenging of our circumstances. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor and well-known psychiatrist, shared that his experiences in concentration camps taught him that while we cannot control our circumstances, we can control our responses to them. He observed that those who found meaning in their suffering, those who were able to remain with some seeds of hope, were more likely to survive. This insight can teach us that hope is not simply a passive wish for better days, but it's an active search for purpose, even in adverse situations. He shared that hope is rooted in 3 key pillars: love, purpose, and suffering. Love inspires us to connect with others, bringing warmth and compassion into our lives. Purpose helps us find our unique and meaningful contributions to the world, reminding us that our existence matters. And suffering, while painful, can lead to growth and deeper understanding of who we are and what is important to us. When we embrace our struggles and seek meaning within them, we unlock the transformative power of hope. Let's face it, in our lives, many of us have faced moments where hope has felt elusive. I frequently hear from patients that many have felt a sense of hopelessness, where they felt completely alone, not sure that anyone could understand what they were experiencing prior to coming into treatment, and recognizing that they were not alone is when they came to treatment. When they felt truly alone before they came to treatment, but when they came into treatment, they recognized they were not alone. And that was because of the community they met while they were here, the people who could understand them, who met them where they were. That first pillar of love is one that shows that our connection to others is an essential part of survival. Hope can depend on that connection. Now, love can also mean love for self. And related to that, Frankl discusses the power of choice, that humans have the ability to choose our attitude as we face difficult or ordinary or extraordinary situations. A poem that was shared before this message was written by a 10-year-old girl called Addie, and I've shared it with her permission, and it reads this: when you fall, sure it's painful, but you get back up. When you're blue, sure you're sad, but you get back up. When you're confused, sure it's hard, but you get back up. When you're done, sure it's exhausting, but please get back up. Don't stay down, get back up. This poem reminds us of the choice that each of us get to make. It can feel so defeating when we get knocked down and we may not be able to control the circumstances that we're experiencing. Maybe it's your own substance or alcohol use, or maybe a behavior. Or maybe it's the pain of seeing our loved one living with their substance or alcohol use disorder or a behavior. But we are in control of the choices that we make with regards to how we respond to our situation. Do we allow ourselves to give in to the defeat? Or do we find a way to get back up? Also, there's a really cool play on the words, but you get back up. And it can mean both us making the decision to get back up and trying something again, and hopefully in a different way than what we did before. Or it can mean finding support in people that can help us get through those challenging situations. Getting back up means that we can find the support and compassion from others who want to be there for us, to help us in those difficult circumstances. When we recognize that there are people who have been through their own challenging experiences and that those people are reaching out to us, it helps us feel not so alone. And as a result, we feel supported, understood, and seen by a caring, thoughtful other who may be willing to accompany us through the valley of our deepest difficulties. When we look at any recovery program, or even the act of simply coming into treatment, we are learning both how to get back up from whatever circumstances we may have found ourselves in, whether that was an intervention, a mandated requirement, or even us making a choice because we were sick of tired of being sick and tired. We are actively making the choice to get back up or get back up simply by agreeing or making that decision to come into treatment. And as we make that decision, we also may begin to find the people who have been in similar circumstances and are now on their own recovery journey. And we begin to realize, as I said, that we're not alone. And we do not ever have to be alone any longer in these potential feelings of isolation or shame that we may have felt prior to coming here. These people may be the backup people that we need when in our future we fall or feel sad or feel done. These may be the backup people who can be the voice of hope for us because of that one pillar of love. And then we get to make the choice to accept their support. This reminds me of another quote from an article called Bound by Brokenness by Ron Johnson. I quoted a little bit of it earlier, but I'll give you the full quote here. It reads, "I recall that often the difference between a suffering that destroys us and a suffering that transforms us begins with the presence of a caring, thoughtful other who is willing to acknowledge that brokenness with us." And that quote both addresses the idea of love and those caring, thoughtful others, and how suffering doesn't have to destroy us, but it can transform us. And we'll get to suffering as the third pillar a little later. Hope is found in the presence of a caring, thoughtful other who is willing to accompany us into that place of our brokenness, our vulnerability. And going back to the theme of survival, when we realize that we're not alone, but we have a caring, thoughtful other or others who will walk with us on our journey, we can begin to rediscover a sense of hope that is essential, as Frankl put it, for our survival. Now, the second pillar in Frankl's book is that of purpose, and finding purpose being a key component of hope. Purpose is something that many people seek, to be able to identify with something, to recognize that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. It can help us recognize that not only are we important, that our lives are important, but also that we belong, as we have a necessary role in how this world works. Frankl's belief in purpose is found in the idea that it can give us direction and the opportunity to positively contribute to the world. Similarly, when a person starts participating in a recovery community, they may be asked to do some simple tasks like, please can you set the chairs out, or can you make the coffee, or other tasks. This helps a person realize that even if they're a newcomer, they have an essential role in that meeting already, that they don't just attend, they already belong. When we start participating in a community of support, whatever that community looks like, it helps us not only feel like we already belong, but also that we're contributing to the welfare of supporting other people. So it can be a way to get us outside of ourselves, and not only our own needs for survival or growth, but for the survival or growth of others. This reminded me of a song by Hezekiah Walker, which reads, I need you, you need me, we're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is God's will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. In a world where there are so many people living with substance or alcohol use disorders, and they remain marginalized and judged, and where what feels like the easiest way to escape that judgment or fear that others have is to escape back into these abusive relationships with the substance or alcohol. We really do need each other to survive, because this abusive relationship with said substance or alcohol surely wants to destroy us. And so finding purpose is all about finding the ability to do the work that helps us build on what we previously said about love, how to connect with meaning and learn how to work together, take responsibility, and work towards something that gives us a reason to survive and thrive, as well as giving others a reason to survive and thrive. Finding purpose, even in the simplest of things, can help ignite that search for meaning, even within ourselves, and sustain us through the darkest of times, because we are no longer going through those times on our own. We now have backup in the forms of the communities we are now becoming a part of. The third pillar that was mentioned is that of suffering. Suffering isn't something we would consciously choose, and yet at times we do experience this in a way that is based on expectations versus where we are. Just like a book I quoted a few months back in a message I gave in chapel the book's called The Gap and the Gain. It said, at times we focus on where we believe we should be, rather than recognizing how far we may have already come. Similarly, we may reflect back to days gone by where our life may have been great and recognize that we're not there now, and our suffering comes from a place of regret, remorse, or even the pain of the losses we have experienced or the change. Grief can be a huge trigger for suffering, and suffering can be a huge trigger for alcohol or substance use. It's important not to ignore the grief, trauma, or pain that may be related to suffering. Emotionally bypassing it by stuffing it down or pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps or slapping a smile on our face is going to lead to a deeper sense of disconnect and a deeper sense of hopelessness. Frankl teaches us that suffering is not simply a source of pain, but it can lead us to a place of personal growth, a deeper understanding of self and the world around us, and therefore it leads us to becoming more resilient and better equipped to face difficult times. When we think about the concept of pain, pain can be our body's warning signal that something is wrong. Think about this: if your lower right quadrant is hurting and you ignore it, you may end up suffering severe consequences from a ruptured appendix. Pain can be our body's warning signal that something is wrong, and we need to pay attention to it. And emotional pain is no different. When we experience emotional pain, instead of trying to numb it, we need to learn how to listen to what our body and our emotions are trying to tell us and get the necessary help that we may need, whether that's to reach out to our backup, as in our support system, to learn how to get back up, or set healthy boundaries with the people causing said pain, or even with ourselves. However we may experience suffering, Frankl reminds us that if we pay attention to the lessons it may be trying to teach us, it can lead us to personal growth and a deeper sense of meaning as we wrestle with and potentially find that growth from the struggles that we may be experiencing. Similarly, in Joseph Campbell's monomyth, he shared about a hero who goes on an adventure, faces challenges and adversities along the way, finds allies that assist him or her on their journey. The hero then undergoes a transformation as a result of this journey and returns home with newfound wisdom. Suffering may be seen as an integral part of this hero's journey. As the hero experiences their trials and tribulations on their quest, there are multiple times when the hero has to make sometimes agonizing decisions as to whether to stay on this path. But they realize that with their allies and support systems, as well as trusted mentors on their journey, that these struggles, that they get them to face their pain and their fears and their limitations, are not faced on their own. And they do indeed learn to lead a more profound, or they indeed lead, I can't even speak right now, sorry. They learn to find a more profound sense of self-identity, self-awareness, and a hope in the person that they are becoming. Suffering can help us learn how to face those difficult and unknown situations in our lives. It can help us find a deeper sense of meaning and lead us to deeper connections to others who, we may be willing to be vulnerable with, and those caring, thoughtful others who will be walking alongside of us into that painful space as we discover that richer personal growth that may come from the experiences that we may experience in suffering. What might the lesson be that we need to learn? And I'm not talking about a lesson in punishment or fear, but rather a lesson that becomes based in growth. So as we look at Frankl's pillars of love, purpose, and suffering, also recognizing the role of choice in these values, what are some practical ways in which we can cultivate hope based on some of these pillars? Well, one way is to surround ourselves with people who can encourage us to grow. One phrase I've said a lot is that we become who we surround ourselves with. If we want to be successful in our recovery, we need to find the people who are successful in their recovery. They can show us the path that they took, which may give us some guidance on our own path. If we want to be a kind and compassionate person, we need kind and compassionate people in our lives. Find the caring, thoughtful others who can help you get back up and who will assist you in remaining upright so that you can grow into the strength that you may need to be that caring, thoughtful other yourself. Develop resilience. Related to suffering, Take what lessons that we can learn from our experiences of suffering, so that the suffering doesn't destroy us, but rather it leads us to a deeper understanding of self as well as potential purpose. Practice gratitude. Again, we're not talking about emotionally bypassing grief, trauma, or pain, or even a righteous anger. Those things need help to work through and are essential to help us gain deeper insight into. But in general, gratitude can help us shift from where we may believe we're lacking to recognizing where we are and what we have and how much we may have grown so far. Like in the book, The Gap and the Gain, focus on any growth we may be making, even if it's just showing up or that you did one task today, rather than worrying about the gap between where you are and where you believe you should be. Gratitude can remind us that we may be exactly where we need to be, and you know what? That's okay. Take action. Even the smallest of changes that you make today can make massive changes in the long run. Don't be afraid to take baby steps if needed. Go up to one person after a meeting and say hi. And you may be introduced to others over time. Be gentle with yourself. Take action. Does not need to be massive changes all at once. Seek support. Sometimes we have some loving and well-meaning people in our lives that want to support us, but they haven't necessarily been in our shoes. It's okay to recognize that these people are still loved by you and they still love you. And there are also communities out there that may be better able to support you in the recovery sense, because they have been in your shoes. Either way, recognizing that there are people who are going to have your back no matter what, whether they do have experience of recovery or not, is essential to help us continue to feel connected and less isolated. And celebrate progress. Just like the book, The Gap and the Gain says, instead of focusing on where we are not, focus on what we have accomplished in our journeys. Again, just the act of showing up to treatment. You've made progress. Celebrate that. And as we do these and other behaviors, we will begin to experience a more hopeful mindset. However we begin to understand the role hope has in our lives, it's important to note that hope is not merely a fleeting emotion. It is something that propels us forward towards meaning and purpose. And as we reflect on Viktor Frankl's insights, let us remember that even in the face of despair, we possess the ability to make choices that can shape our story. By embracing love, seeking purpose, and finding meaning in our suffering, we can navigate life's challenges with resilience and grace. May we all find hope in our journeys, and may it guide us towards a brighter tomorrow. Amen.
Amen.